As alarms wailed into Poker City on Kamino, 3 Jedi and an ARC trooper raced down an undersea tunnel to one of the city's cloning facilities, where a new batch of clones was being grown. The Separatists were closing in on their position. Soon, they'd be poised to take the lab, capturing thousands of young clones. As the group reached the lab's central control station, the ARC trooper, Alpha 17, asked his Jedi allies to cover him as he secured the developing clones. He was at the controls for only a few seconds before he reported that his work was complete, leading Obi-Wan Kenobi to ask what he had done. To the horror of his Jedi allies, he answered that he had set the whole center to self-destruct, dooming the young clones. "They grow up loyal to the Republic," he said, "or they don't grow up at all."
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
That scene played out during the First Battle of Kamino, one of many Separatist attempts to destroy the Kaminoan clone factories, the birthplace of the Grand Army of the Republic. The attack took place in the 3rd month of the Clone Wars, and obviously, it was ultimately unsuccessful. But unlike 2 subsequent battles that would happen on Kamino, one spearheaded by General Grievous and Asajj Ventress, and another by the Mandalorian Protectors, the First Battle of Kamino saw the Confederacy come dangerously close to victory. If Darth Sidious hadn't set the battle up as a Separatist defeat, the clone factories may well have been destroyed. Even with Sidious's involvement, the Confederacy still may have won were it not for the Alpha class ARC troopers, 100 elite clones who had been trained by Jango Fett himself. They were, as Clone Commando Darman once noted, pretty much pure Jango in terms of skill, personality, and independence, and with Fett's training and the most high quality equipment the Kaminoans had, they were the closest the Kaminoans got to making super soldiers for the Republic. They were first seen during this battle, as the Kaminoans had previously kept them in stasis for fear of their independence. Upon activation, the ARC troopers immediately set out to defend the cloning labs, working in tandem with the Jedi to keep oncoming battle droids away from the young clones. However, the ARCs did so not because the Jedi ordered them to, but rather because Jango Fett had. The Prime clone had given them standing orders to follow in the event of an assault on Kamino, and these took precedence over whatever the Jedi wanted. As the Jedi learned over the course of the battle, one of the orders was to kill younger clones if they were at risk of capture. This disturbing command seems unreasonably cruel, but as we'll see shortly, there was a reason for it. To understand this scenario, we first have to take a broader look at the battle. The first assault on Kamino was masterminded by Corporate Alliance Magistrate Pascal Argente and the revered Mon Calamari commander Mirai. Mirai took point in the battle, leading a small fleet of Corporate Alliance and Trade Federation vessels to Kamino and immediately deploying starfighters. The Jedi took to the skies in response, and as they tried to hold off the oncoming Vulture droids, Mirai worked to bring down the shield the Kaminoans had raised over Poker City. Fortunately for the Republic, the intel Argente and Mirai had was faulty. Darth Sidious had seen to that. Mirai's plan to take down Poker City's shield and then bombard the clone factories from orbit failed, and to make matters worse, the Republic had been expecting the attack and had naval reinforcements on the way. Mirai ultimately sacrificed himself to allow his fleet to escape, leaving the Republic victorious in the First Battle of Kamino. But while Mirai's plan to bombard Poker City failed, he had also sent out armies of battle droids to whittle away the city's defenses in advance. Poker City's shield could repel turbo lasers, but it was ineffective at stopping Separatist landing craft from touching down at several of the city's landing pads. Battle droids poured out of their landers and began gunning down Poker City's clone defenders, who were severely outnumbered. In short order, the droids captured the city's external platforms, then several outlying sectors, and then the central armory. Before long, they began to advance on the cloning labs. Into Poker City's command center, Lama Su and Shak Ti watched this all play out on monitors. Lama Su suggested activating the ARC troopers as a last resort, and Shak Ti agreed. As battle droids took control of the outer labs, where a small group of clone younglings were trapped, Alpha 17 and 2 other ARCs leapt down from the rafters, guns blazing. In an impressive display of skill, they quickly turned all the droids in the room to scrap, saving the young clones. When one of the younglings remarked on this fact, Alpha 17 noted that they could have saved themselves, and ordered the kids to get blasters from the bodies of their older brothers and prepare for the second wave. This second wave consisted of a pair of droidicas, but the timely intervention of Shakti ensured that both destroyer droids were dealt with quickly, securing the lab once more. As Lama Su escorted the younglings to safety, Alpha announced that he had orders to take care of the other young clones, and Shakti set off to help. Obi-Wan Kenobi and his Padawan Anakin Skywalker joined up with them on their way to the labs where the youngest batch of clones was being grown. But the droids were close behind them and they had no reinforcements, prompting Alpha to attempt to euthanize the young clones. The Jedi were ultimately able to talk him out of doing so, and Tipoca City eventually repulsed the droids without the need for killing younglings. But the Arcs nonetheless came dangerously close to carrying out one of their darker orders. But why did Jango order his elite clones to murder their young brothers? As Alpha explained, it was unacceptable for untrained clones to fall into enemy hands, and thus they were to be killed as an alternative to capture. Alpha likely believed this was to prevent the Confederacy from getting their hands on Jango's genetic material or learning of what the clones had and hadn't been trained for. The younger clones, after all, hadn't been trained to resist interrogation and they weren't able to defend themselves as well as their older brothers. The Arcs likely believed that their orders were a matter of security. However, this doesn't hold up under scrutiny. The Confederacy, after all, was being led by the very man who had overseen the creation of the clone army, something that Jango himself was well aware of. He had fought for the Confederacy on Geonosis, after all, and knew, to some degree, that the Sith were playing both sides. His reasons for ordering the ARC troopers to kill the young clones were almost definitely not as simple as he had led them to believe. It's possible that Fett feared the Confederacy would be able to brainwash young clones and use them as spies, especially the ones who hadn't been indoctrinated yet. But as even clone younglings had been thoroughly indoctrinated, this only makes sense in specific cases. It's more likely that the danger in young clones being captured wasn't that the Confederacy would learn more about the clones, but rather that the public would. Dooku would see to it that any knowledge about the true nature of the clones was silenced within the CIS military, but if lower-ranking Separatists learned anything they weren't supposed to know about the clones, that information could have spread like wildfire. The clones, after all, weren't all that they appeared to be, and either interrogation or dissection could have revealed that their training had certain curious irregularities. We're talking, of course, about Order 66. The Separatists likely knew that the clones had control chips in their brains, as they surely had gotten hold of fully grown clone specimens, but they wouldn't have known what those chips were for. They wouldn't have gotten an answer out of fully trained clones, who were trained to be able to resist interrogation, but they probably could have gotten plenty of information about clone training out of the younglings. A Separatist interrogator asking the right questions could have discovered that, starting at a very early age, clones were programmed with contingency orders, one of which involved the murder of Jedi. If the Separatists learned this, then the information easily could have escaped to the public before Dooku could have silenced it, and from there, it's possible that the Jedi would hear of it. No matter what the reason Jango had for giving these orders, they should have been a red flag for the Jedi. That day on Kamino, Alpha 17 proved that even ARC troopers, the most independent clones in the Grand Army, were perfectly willing to kill their comrades if ordered to. This would have been a big hint that the clones were more than they seemed, and that there was a possibility they could be a danger to their Jedi superiors. But the Jedi were blind to this. They accepted the ARC troopers just as readily as they accepted the other clones, and as with the rest of the Grand Army of the Republic, they did so without question. So that's our look into why ARC troopers had standing orders to butcher their younger brothers. But what do you think? Would you like to hear more about Alpha 17, our favorite clone? Feel free to post your thoughts in the comment section below. And just before you go, guys, make sure you check out our Patreon if you want to check out our behind the scenes Discord and some exclusive content. Our Relax Jack music channel if you just want access to some of the music we used in this video and plenty of our recent videos. And our wider Geetsly's community, including our main Discord server where you can chat to myself and other Star Wars fans, and our Geetsly's gaming network. Anyways, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.